Hi, Tom. Thanks for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Oh, hi, Nathan. First of all, thanks for having me here. And um, I'm a I'm a videographer. I'm just I've been an Apollo uh, moon the Apollo project fan since I was 10 years old in 1967, and I'm very excited about. Hopefully, in a few years, we're going to be returning to the moon.
So what was it like in 1967 seeing the Apollo program when you were 10?
Well, it first started out with the Apollo fire. I was my dad tried to explain to me what happened and how dangerous it was. And I think after that, I really did appreciate the risks that were involved um, in this endeavor. Um, I think it was a huge, massive wake up call for NASA. But for a 10-year-old, yeah, it was kind of tough. You didn't really think of things in that perspective, but it really made you think, even as a 10-year-old. I mean, when they finally did land on the moon, I was I was scared for them. My dad was scared for them too, as they were approaching, because anything can happen. So it was, as a 10, 12-year old, it was exciting, and it's hard to explain. It's so long ago, but anyway, um, that's how it was when I was very young.
Where were you living at the time?
In Trumbull, Connecticut, with my family, and I mean, we've been. My mom is still there. She's 95 years old, and she's still in the same house. And we're here in Fairfield, which is only about 12 minutes away.
And I guess what were you thinking about at the time? I mean, what was the significance of what these people were doing to you?
Oh, well, these guys were my heroes. I mean, the astronauts, they were my heroes. Uh, some people had football and baseball players as heroes. The astronauts were mine. I just couldn't think of anything more exciting than what they were doing, as a kid.
Did you think one day that maybe you would become an astronaut?
Oh, yeah, I think a lot of kids that are into sports want to be a ball player, and I would have loved to have been an astronaut. I mean, it's not too late. I guess Shatner went up at 90, so uh, this hope for all of us, I guess, to possibly see what he saw. But yeah, yeah, at that age, I did want to be an astronaut. Um, that's pretty safe to say.
And your enthusiasm, was it shared with your peers and the other people that were your age as well, or were you
Some,
kind of
yeah,
middle?
some, and others weren't so much, but I pretty much stuck with the ones who did follow the same thing, the same interest that I did. But yeah, yeah. I mean, if you want to go right to July of 1969, everybody was really excited about it, pretty much. And then as the years went by to 71, 72, it kind of waned a bit. But that's partly, well, I'll get into that later. NASA made some mistakes about the public. They should have been doing a few things over the years. They should have had women astronauts. I think that would have been a huge, and there were women who were qualified to be astronauts. African Americans, they should have been astronauts back in the 60s. That would have helped tremendously in public support. Um, Things like that. And also, the television technology. I mean, television was in its infancy, really. I mean, it's still television was still a baby back in 1969. It was remarkable what they did on July 20th. And I had talked to um, what was his name? I can't remember his name. He was the one in charge of coordinating the television for the first moonwalk, and it could have easily gone bad. I mean, everything had to be just right, and we were so fortunate to see. And it was very important. I mean, people, as we got closer to the moonwalk, even Washington wanted people to see it. I mean, it was low priority in their safety and with a lot of telemetry, but they really wanted people to witness it, you know, and we did.
I've talked to a couple of people that lived through the 1960s who were both Apollo deniers, and both of them, their primary evidence was the quality of video. And I, I was just thinking how much better it's going to be this time around with the video technology that we have.
Yeah. First of all, in regard to the quality of video in 1969, they actually had to, maybe you already know, you probably know this, they actually had to shoot it off because it was a low scan picture. I think it was 100 lines per second. I forgot what it was. So they had to actually shoot it off of a monitor. And the only ones who actually saw the higher quality direct video was probably the people in Australia. Because they had the best tracking receiver. And then there's a few Polaroid pictures, I think, or something that people took. You can see the difference in the quality. But yeah, they actually had it was very low tech. They actually had to put a conventional TV camera on the monitor. And so you lost something, you know, it seems more ghostly, you know. It's a Vidicon tube. I started with a Vidicon tube, and it is very ghostly, like it retains the image as you move. So the only thing I can say to people who don't believe that they actually went to the moon is I think Russia would have been the first people to really say this is not real. You know, they would have been the first people to really jump on that, and that really didn't happen. I mean, they could have easily gotten the bandwagon about that. You know, I am 100% absolutely sure that they did walk on the moon, and I have no question about that.
Yeah, me neither. And I totally, that's one of the arguments I love to use in those situations too, is you know, they're able to triangulate a radio signal and see where it comes from. And they would be the first, I mean, that would be such a coup for them to say, look
Yeah,
at these,
exactly.
look at these goofy people pretending to go to the moon.
Oh yeah, they would have been the first to jump on it. I mean, they would have tried to find holes in it, and really, I mean, they would have loved to expose the United States, you know, that alone. And also now in the last few years, with the newest reconnaissance satellites that are mapping the moon, we've actually mapped those landing sites, and you can see the rovers tire trails and things like that. You can see where the LEM is, the ascent state, the descent stage. It's all there. I mean, you know, so I've talked to a few astronauts. I talked to Alan Bean over about 20 years ago. He came to Fairfield a couple of times. I met the entire Apollo 12 crew in 1999, and I actually have I actually been talking to Alan Bean's widow, you know, and she was telling me a lot of things about, you know, what he told about the adventure. This is a second marriage, but they're just I think they get a little they got a little miffed when people say they didn't go to the moon. But you know, what are you going to do? You can't, you know, change people's mind if they're setting, you know, on that. But you know, it's yeah, I've always thought these people are kind of strange that thought we never went to the moon.
I mean, it's amazing. They don't even need to have evidence or expertise. You know, they just make a claim that didn't happen. And it's so
Yeah.
funny whenever they interact with these people that actually went. You know, they can spin that encounter however they want. Oh, look at the way they didn't react, because obviously, you know, but it's so
Yeah.
exhausting dealing with the same people about a
Oh yeah.
non-issue from their perspective.
Well, yeah, I forgot, someone had said, well, we've seen the satellite pictures, the close-ups of the landing sites. I think we can tell all these people, these conspirators, conspiracy theorists, to shut the F up, something like that. So I just thought it was great that we were able to actually see the landing sites, finally.
Yeah, those are amazing photos. Where they show you the base of the limb, and then where they set up the scientific equipment, and like you said,
All there.
it's all pretty amazing. And
Yeah.
on the whole other side of it, you have what is it, For All Moonkind, which is an organization that's working on trying to preserve these sites from future
Yeah,
space exploration and tourism.
exactly. Yeah, it's going to be coming to the point where we are returning to the moon, and there's not really any regulations to preserve these sites, and hopefully people will respect them. Yeah, I mean, it's been over 50 years now, and in the next 10, 15 years, I mean, it's going to be more common, not commonplace, but it's, we're going to have people over there. We want to protect our those landing sites. Hopefully that'll happen. The
Yeah,
Titanic is protected for people. Anybody who goes down to the Titanic site. I mean, it is uh, it's forbidden to take artifacts. I think up there, things like that. It is But anyway, yeah. I hope they do respect the landing sites.
yeah. Richard Garriott, his father was a Skylab astronaut, and
Mhm.
he was one of the few first space tourists that paid the Russians to go on a
Yeah.
Soyuz of the International Space Station. But he also went down to the Titanic in a submersible sub, and explored around there. And um, in his autobiography, he talks about how um, the sub, kind of went into the Titanic and hit the top, and pieces fell down.
Well, sediment comes down. Yeah.
Well, I mean, pieces of the Titanic, I think, actually.
No, yeah, I mean the rusticles and things, part of the ship, because it's deteriorating. It is deteriorating. I mean, at a faster pace than they thought it was going to be. But yeah, it's all fascinating. That's all good to me. I mean, I just love all that stuff.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. But in terms of trying to preserve the Titanic,
Yeah.
um, you know, we're not able to do that. And the Apollo 11 site's going to be such a draw to
Yeah.
people. I mean, if I went to the moon, I'd be like, I want to see the first place. I want to put my footprint right next to
Well, yeah. Hopefully, they'll just admire it from a distance. They don't have to actually walk in the actual area. That would be ideal. But there's not much you can do. Uh, I mean, hopefully, I mean, Chinese are trying to reach the moon also, and private sectors. I mean, it's going to be, in the next 20, 15, 20 years, it's going to be a lot different. It's not going to be something you have no access to anymore. And it's a whole different ball game.
It's definitely an interesting time. I often like to say that the 2020s are what the people in the 1960s thought the 1970s were going to be. And I was wondering, as somebody who lived through the 1960s and 1970s, and very much aware of the 2020s, what do you think about that description?
Well, yeah, we had a lot of high hopes and a lot of once we landed on the moon, we were already talking about going to Mars, and Pan Am was taking the orders for people to travel to the moon eventually, maybe the next 10 years, 15 years. I mean, we could have done all that. It was just a desire to do it, the money. But toward the end of the Apollo program, Nixon had canceled the last three. I think they were afraid of their pressing their luck with. I mean, we hadn't had a disaster, and it's also really very expensive to do it. But the hardware was already built. I was very disappointed that they didn't go to Apollo 19 or 20. That's what it was originally planned. But I think part of the reason is they didn't want to press their luck. Things were going well, and 17 was their most successful one, and that could have had something to do with it also. You know, I mean, the shuttle went up 150, 175. I don't know how many times, and we had two, disasters, and we only had a few Saturn V's go up. So I would think if you had 150 Saturn V launches, you would have had a couple, possibly. You know, it's just it's dangerous. It's very dangerous, and no matter how careful you are, sometimes things happen. But yeah, it was all different. '70s we changed our NASA was kind of, they changed their objectives. They wanted that shuttle. They wanted to have that shuttle. They wanted a space station, and excuse me, say that. Okay. They wanted to get that space station built, and that took a long time also, not until into the 1990s. But it was the shuttle was basically a transportation system to nowhere, just into orbit. I mean, we did a lot of things with it, but I mean, I didn't believe that it would be so long that we would return to the moon. I thought maybe by the 1990s we'd be going back. I just couldn't believe it was going to be the last mission for the century. I thought maybe we'd pick up again in maybe 20 years, but it hasn't happened.
Yeah, I imagine it's been really disappointing, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s,
Yeah.
the 2010s.
I mean, the shuttle is great, but it has a lot of problems. I remember in 1979, I was there for the 10th anniversary of the moon landing. It was on July 20th, 1979. I saw Armstrong, Aldrin, Collins, and John Young was there, and Bob Crippen, who are going to be flying the first shuttle. And someone who I forgot who it was, he was an authority on the shuttle. I said to him, I asked him about why don't they use a lot of to walk? Why don't they use a lot of Velcro on the floors? They can use it. Well, we have to limit. He was telling me all kinds of things about the show. We had to limit the amount of Velcro because it's flammable, things like that. And also, he talks about we're working. Even then, they were a little worried about the. I'd never heard of this thing called O-rings. They were even talking about that back then. And I remember he mentioned O-rings, and he said, "Yeah, we're still working on a few things." That was '79, and they went up in April '81. So he said, there's some things we still have to address, and this is something we've never done before. It was a compromise. The shuttle was a compromise. They wanted to have two separate crafts that brought it up, and then the other one lands, and that's totally reusable. That it was too expensive, and maybe we didn't have the technology to do that. So this was a compromise. The solid rocket boosters strapped onto a huge fuel tank. And we did find out that there were problems, and also policy procedures, safety procedures were not. We found out they should have been following better safety procedures for the when the Columbia went up. There were signs that there was something wrong during the launch, but they should have used the arm to look underneath and see the side. If they had done that, I don't know. I don't know if they could have saved them. They could have stayed up for a certain amount of time. They may have been able to get another shuttle up there. But anyway, the shuttle, well, yeah, it's a mixture of. I have mixed feelings about the shuttle. I mean, it was amazing spacecraft, the most complicated spacecraft I guess we ever made. But it had its problems naturally.
Yeah, I know that they had like a National Reconnaissance Office satellite that was tasked to take pictures of the Columbia in orbit, and after the debate, they decided when necessary, and a lot of people kind of question that. whether or not you
We
could
learned
put,
a lot. I mean, it took the lives of 14 people, but between Challenger and Columbia, and well, for that matter, the Apollo fire, we learned so much from it, but um, it costs a lot of lives, though. That was the price. But I'm hoping that with this new endeavor, we're going to be a lot more cautious. I know it's taken so long to develop this new system, so hopefully they've learned from it. Learned a lot from all these past 50 years and made the safest spacecraft they can make.
yeah, definitely. I mean, one big thing, difference between like the shuttle and, sort of like the Apollo missions and before was the launch escape system. I mean, a lot of people would say that if you had a similar type system with Challenger, maybe we could have saved those astronauts as an example.
Yeah, but there really wasn't. I don't know what you could have done unless you had the whole cabin eject from. I mean, it happened so fast. I don't know, but um, it just wasn't built for that. It would have been very difficult to have some kind of launch escape system. I guess it might have been possible. It would have been a lot more expensive structurally to build it, but yeah, I mean, with this new system, they're back to the basics. Like it's like like I say, Apollo on steroids. It's a launch escape system, just like in the old days. The capsule is basically the same shape because they got that right. I mean, it's the best shape for reentry, so you don't change that too much. But and you don't have to worry about the ice forming on the main tank hitting tiles because it's completely isolated from the rest of the rocket, the capsule. It's a basic capsule design, and it's a lot more sophisticated in Apollo. So I can't wait for the first launch. I think they're going to be launching in another couple of months. I think I'm not sure how the schedule what the schedule is for the unmanned mission, but I'm looking forward to that.
I think the best guesses I've seen have pushed it over into 2022, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think originally it was like November they were looking for, but I mean, I want them to do whatever they have to do. I mean, this thing has been massively behind schedule, and hopefully all of this is going to be worth it. I don't want to see another a disaster like the other ones, but yeah, they have to make sure everything's right. I'm a little nervous with Boeing because Boeing hasn't had a great record in the last few years, so they got to get this right, and they got to get this right. I mean, it's an unmanned one, but still, a lot is depending on this test flight. If we're going to go back to the moon, everything has to work. Now, SpaceX, I'm really super impressed with SpaceX, what they've been able to do. It's just a whole different thing. I'm a big believer in the private sector doing this sort of thing, and we'll see in the next few years what happens with the Starship. I'm trying to think, what is it? The one they're working on. Is it Starship?
It is Starship, though
Yeah.
it has your confusion about the name is not unwarranted since it's been called the Interplanetary Transportation System,
I don't know. No, I drew a
BFR,
blank. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
Oh
now
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
now it's
Yeah.
Starship. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I knew it. I drew a blank, but I've been following that also, and it's amazing the progress they've made in such a short amount of time. I'm really impressed, and I'm really anxious to see in the next few years what happens. They're talking about Mars, but if this thing can be used as a regular use for lunar travel, we can do so much with the moon right now. We can put huge satellite electronic telescopes, regular telescope, conventional optical telescope. There's so much we can do with the moon. I mean, the Mars is great. I don't. I don't think we're ready for Mars. I think it's gonna be a while. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the moon is something we can do right now. It's only 3 days, 3 4 days away. Um, there's so much we can do to, if you want to say the word, exploit the moon. For eventually, we're going to have cold fusion, and we'll be able to use helium 3. I think it is the element for cold fusion reactors. That'll be a huge game changer too for nuclear power. I talked to Jack Schmidt about 18 years ago about that, and um, walked on the moon, Apollo 17, and I think he's involved with that. I haven't. I mean, it's been a long time since I talked to him. I think he's still involved with that. It's for some in some capacity, but there's a lot of possibilities. The moon has so many possibilities. We just have to learn how to get there less expensively, but the possibilities are, endless.
And it is really amazing what SpaceX is doing. Kind of talking about that, did you get to see the Inspiration 4 launch and follow all that?
Let's see that one. I'm not sure if I saw that launch.
That
No,
was
I
the
don't think I.
that was the one with the 4, private citizens.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, I love that one. And then they replaced the docking mechanism with the window, and it was just unbelievable. I mean, as great as Jeff Bezos' thing is for, the spacecraft is for, a quick look up in space, 62 miles, 67 miles up. There's nothing like being in orbit and spending a few days up there and really drink. I think they were like 350 feet, miles above the. I think they're above the international space. I think it's like 375 miles. And the higher you are, the more you see the Earth, and the more of the curvature of the Earth. And I can only imagine when you're standing on the moon, you're looking at the Earth, and it's maybe like 2.5 inches across. If you hold your hand out, but what that looks like is just, I mean, you just see the whole Earth all at once. Everything's right there. Everything that ever existed is right there. But I would love to get a little glimpse of something like that someday. But yeah, that was a great thing. And then that they made a lot of money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. I think about a couple $100 million they raised. My wife and I, we every month we donate to St. Jude's. We were really thrilled about that. So yeah, that was an incredible mission, and I was very happy for the young lady who I think she's the first to go into space with a prosthetic, which was I mean I think that alone inspires a lot of people. Anything's possible.
Yeah, and I mean, these seem like pretty much everyday people. I mean, I felt like I could have been one of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first all civilian crew, I guess, to go into orbit like that. They're all civilians. So yeah, I mean, it's getting there. Little by little, baby steps. It's going to be a lot of baby steps, and I'm 64, so I'm hoping that hopefully at least another 15 years I can see what's going on. I'm a little selfish. I want to see a lot of things happen fast, but it's going to happen when it happens. So but I'm still that 12-year-old kid who watched that first moonwalk, and the ones after that. I was always, whenever I could, I wish I had a VCR then. But I have all the moonwalks on DVD now, so it's great to watch that stuff again. But yeah, I mean, I feel like a 12-year-old sometimes when all this stuff happens.
So when did you find out about the efforts to get us back to the moon? When did you find out about the plans to go back in
Well,
2024?
Well, not 2024, but they were talking about it in the Bush administration back in 2006, I think it was, and they wanted to set a goal to go back to the moon in 10 years, like 2016 or something like that. And I said, hey, that's great, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of excitement for, I mean, they needed the money. They had to back it up with the money. And that's one of the problems with even with the Artemis. It's just a lot of government contracts, and every senator wants to make sure their state gets the contract. And they're doing things the way they always done it, with bidding on contracts and then the cost overruns over the years. And SpaceX seems to be making a lot of progress pretty fast. Let the billionaires pay for a lot of this. I mean, they want to do it, and then they can sell it to NASA, the finished product. NASA can use those spacecraft. But I think the days of, I think Artemis may be the last of that type to be funded like that. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. I mean, hopefully it's going to be a magnificent spacecraft, and we're really going to do a lot of things with it. You go to asteroids, Mars eventually. I mean, it's built not just for Earth orbit and lunar work. It's supposed to be kind of an all-purpose spacecraft, and it'll be improved and adapted over the years. But I'm very anxious to see on this test flight I'm sure it's going to do well. It's already proven itself for reentry tests and things like that, and everything else. But yeah, it was that's when I first heard about them really talking about returning to the moon, was around 2006 or so. And I just I was for it, all for it. I just the main thing I always thought is we can't just be doing the same thing, landing on the moon, staying a couple of days, picking up some rocks, planting a flag, and coming back. We have to really have a good purpose to return to the moon. If we can find water toward the poles, that's where they really want to go, is in that huge crater. I forgot what it's called. The name of it is where it's always permanently dark. That's probably where the ice is. They pretty much confirmed there is ice, a lot of ice there. If that's the only way we can have a sustainable space station, moon base. If we're able to sustain ourselves, and if they have water, then they have hydrogen and oxygen. They can do, they can be a lot more self-sufficient. You just can't rely on supply ships for those basic things. And that's really exciting. I mean, if we can do that, there's a series on For All Mankind, it's called, on Apple. I don't know if you've seen it. And it's kind of like an alternate reality of how, if the Russians had landed on the moon first, and then there was another space race to do other things, moon base. It's all stuff that we always wanted to do. So it's an interesting series on Apple TV. But anyway, yeah. I don't know what else I can tell you about. I'm excited about what's going to happen. Hopefully things will go well, naturally, and I'll be able to see a lot of this going on in the next 15 years or so. It would be so gratifying to me.
Of most of the people that I talk to that are not interested in space, just random people at Starbucks and at the mall and, on the bus, I would say about 80% of them don't know that we're going back to the moon. And I was wondering what you think NASA should be doing differently to kind of create more enthusiasm.
Well, yeah, NASA, I think I mentioned a little bit of this earlier. NASA has not done a great job over the years helping the public for public support. They should have had women astronauts in the 60s. They should have had some African American astronauts. There were qualified pilots. Now, Wally Funk, who was in the first launch with Jeff Bezos, in the Shepard spacecraft, she was she should have been an astronaut in the 60s. A lot of these women tested better than some of the men for Mercury. So I'm glad that she was able to get a chance at least to get a little taste of space flight. And I think she was 82 or 83 when she went up. But one of the things they have to do, and I would love, because I'm a television, I'm a videographer, they have to make sure when they do return to the moon that they are able to show the public properly. And that shouldn't be a problem now. I mean, with the video technology, Apollo, after Apollo 11, Apollo 12 had the problem with the camera. 14 had a back focus problem with their camera, but it was just a stationary camera. Things really got interesting with Apollo 15 and 15, 16, and 17. But by then, it was a few years. They had the Apollo 13 crisis, and it was a few years until we really got into really exploring the moon. By then, the stations weren't showing live broadcasts. They would show highlights on the news, and that was a shame because you could really follow them where they were going with the lunar rover. Once they stopped, they set up the antenna, and they were showing live pictures from the moon, video from the moon was, and the quality was getting better and better. By 17, they really had some really nice images. But it was too late. People, they didn't have access to it. They were watching soap operas. They didn't want to interrupt the soap operas and things like that. And but yeah, I hope this time. Well, they're having a woman. They're having a woman crewman. That's great to do. Yeah, great. That's a great gesture, I think, whatever you want to call it. But and I'm sure she won't be the first to go to the moon. But I just hope they handle things with the public better than they did 50 something years ago. I think there's a lot they can do with the technology now with television. Television's, I mean, if you told somebody in the 1850s that people would go to the moon, I think it was I forgot who had mentioned that, but if you told somebody in 1850 that people would go to the moon, they would, maybe grasp that. But if you told them also that people would go to the moon and in your home you'd be able to watch them on the moon, I think that would have really blown their mind. Television is just an amazing tool. We haven't always used television the best of our capability, but with a lot of the programs we have. But I mean, when it's properly used, television can be an amazing tool. Philo Farnsworth is the man credited for inventing the practical television system, electronic television. And I think his widow had said when they were watching the moonwalk, he said this made it all worthwhile. He said, so he was very gratified about that, from what I understand. But yeah, television, and now there won't be a problem. I mean, you'll be able to watch it in so many different. I mean, you have CNN and all kinds. I mean, you have NASA television. It won't be a problem with that. You have to convince people that this is important work they're doing. We've gotten so many benefits from the space program over the past 50 years. People take for granted. I mean, computer systems, miniaturization of even the motors that they used in the drills to drill into the core, or the drill cores. I think Black & Decker designed those motors, high torque motors. And, a lot of it, most of the stuff trickles out to the general public. In electronics and medical technology has benefited from the space program. And sometimes it's not always conveyed to people. They're kind of short-sighted about what the space program has done for the average person over the past 50 years. Satellite technology, this device we're using right now, it all trickled down from technology that would probably come around anyway, but it probably would have taken longer, I'm sure. if we didn't have this need to miniaturize components and it was just a boom to technology. Just I don't know what else I can tell you about that, but that's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been amazing how technology's progressed. I mean, just the idea of being able to talk to people all over the world, get your maps on your
Yeah.
phone. I mean, it's magical.
Yeah, I mean, this thing has. I don't know how much more processing power this thing has, or even my watch, than the lunar module had to land on the moon. It was amazing we were able to do what we had to do. It was basically late 1950s technology that was developed over the next 10 years. But yeah, I mean, I'm astounded by that also. And then we were able to do it so quickly. We put one man in orbit. Not even, no, we just suborbital with Alan Shepard. And then 7 years later, how long was he? Or 8 years later, we were able to land on the moon. That's pretty darn fast. After World War II, it's only 25 years after World War II. And we were like, we had, with the, our technologies like exploded. It's from the 1950s on,
If it was safe and affordable, would you take a trip to space?
Yeah, I would. Whatever I mean, the Soyuz spacecraft has been around for 55 years or so. I mean, it has been completely perfected, I think, as long as they do what they're supposed to be doing with safety and all that, and don't cut any corners. The Soyuz is extremely safe. It had a very tragic beginning, but it's an extremely safe way to get into orbit. Yeah, I mean, I would do Shepard, what Shatner did. I would. I mean, as long as it was reasonably perfected, something like that, I would want to go in space. I would.
Would you consider being one of the first immigrants to Mars?
No, I have a granddaughter and family and wife, family, and everything like that. So no, I mean, it would be interesting if this was like 50 years in the future and you can just go for a few weeks, to visit and things like that. Well, it takes a long time to get there unless they really work on the it's nuclear engines, I guess. But no, right now, no, I wouldn't want. The moon is a different thing. That's only like 4 days away. So I would love it at 1/6 gravity. It's even more fun at 1/6 gravity as opposed to 1/3 gravity on Mars. I think it's 1/3. Yeah, the moon is. I had no problem going to the moon. I mean, I thought, like we're getting back to what we were saying, when I was 12 years old, I thought by the 1990s people would be able to go to the moon and they would have an established base or something like that. And anyway, yeah, I would. I mean, I'm sure you would too, I guess. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends upon perception of risk at the time.
Well, yeah, it depends on, like I said, the Soyuz. I'm pretty darn confident in the Soyuz spacecraft. And let's see. Now, the other one is what's the other one now? I'm trying to think. We have the Shepard, and what's his name is doing. That's the one where it goes up in the and it comes out.
Oh, the Virgin Galactic.
The Virgin, yeah. That's been proven also so far, but I think I'd rather go on the Shepard. I like it goes up higher. Actually, it actually goes past the Kármán line. I think it's past 62 miles. You're officially in space. I think the Virgin Atlantic is a little lower. I might be wrong, but I mean, you could go up higher in the Shepard, but you have to sacrifice the booster. I mean, because you're saving fuel for the landing. But yeah, if you let it burn longer, you can get up higher. I don't know how much higher. But then you sacrifice the booster, and that's an expensive piece of hardware. So I'm not sure how much higher you can go. You're just, you're high enough to, you're in space, and um, that's the whole thing. You're not going to go into orbit or anything like that. The reentry is very benign. It's very easy reentry because you're just going up, stopping, and then coming down from a relatively low altitude. Orbit is a whole different ball game. I mean, when you're in orbit, you're going 17,500, whatever it is, 17,500 miles an hour. Then you got to put a lot of energy into stopping, slowing down, and that's like 3,000 degree temperatures when you're hitting the atmosphere. That's a whole different ball game. But this is relatively much easier. Shatner, I think the most G's they hit was 3 G's, something like that. So it wasn't too bad. I think the shuttle was also like 3 G's. It was made to John Glenn was 77. I think he went up in 1998. And he was at the time the oldest to go up. So, but yeah, getting back, I would do any of those three. Especially I would love to go. I would love to go into orbit for a few days. That would be nice. Hopefully my stomach would be all right with it. Some of the best astronauts have gotten sick, for a day or two. So that's something else you have to consider. Hopefully you have the constitution for it, but I would love to,
So where do you see humanity going in the next few, 50, 100, 200, 300 years?
Well, I'd like to think we'll be going on and slowly progressing, and we'll solve a lot of our problems here. Hopefully the space technology will help. But it's I don't know. It's just, sometimes I think I don't know if we're gonna make it sometimes, because we have to really get together and solve some of these problems. And like Shatner said, when you look up, it's black, and all you see is everything is down there. Everything we are is down there, and we have to take better care of it. So I'm hoping that we're gonna. I hope we start using more electric vehicles, get the emissions down. There's a lot of work to do if we're going to make it for another few hundred years. But I mean, if we are able to do that, there's no limit to what we can do. In 200 years, we may have a Star Trek like existence. Who knows? Or it could be like some of these other movies about the future, like Waterworld or something. But I'm hoping it's not the latter.
Yeah, that would be. That's something we talk about with exoplanets. You might have an exoplanet that has liquid water, but it may not have any land. That could be a problem.
Well, yeah. I am concerned, and it's happening faster than they said it was going to happen with the global warming and things like that. I mean, my granddaughter is 2 years old, and I don't know what's going to be like at the end of the century. What it will be like. I'm hoping it won't be as bad as they're predicting, but we have to do things now, and I'm not sure if people are willing to make the sacrifices. There's going to be sacrifices to be made, and I don't know. I think it's like 50-50 chance that we're going to be able to get out of this century, unscathed to a certain extent. But I'm hopeful. To a certain extent, I'm hopeful. It's up to us, it really is. And some of these undeveloped countries are industrialized now, and they have to get on board with they're behind with emissions and things like that. They're having automobiles. They just have to. It's a complicated thing. I just hope we're able to lick these problems. It's going to take a while. It's going to take decades and decades. But I mean, what do you think? What do you think about the next 100 years?
Well, I think from a threat standpoint, I worry about war with Taiwan, not war with Taiwan, war over Taiwan. How about that?
Yeah.
You know, China seems to be a lot more, aggressive in terms of their stance in terms of Taiwan, and I just wonder if we decide not to intervene, do we ultimately create like a World War II Hitler type situation where it's like, well, we'll take over the Philippines and the, you know, uh, Korea
Yeah.
and it's just kind of
Yeah.
you see the same expansionism, and then
Yeah.
you're like, if you do put down a line, do you get involved in an engagement that, I mean, one big difference is we did not depend upon the Third Reich or the Soviet Union for any amount of material resources during those conflicts, but China is where everything's made. So it's a whole
Yeah.
different scenario now than it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Scary stuff, to say the least. Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I try not to think about that aspect, but I hope. Like sometimes you just, I mean, as an individual, you just hope it doesn't come to that. Um, it's up to all of us. We have, I mean, the future is it's not etched in stone, so we can. It's up to us to make it a better future. I hope that'll happen.
It is, and the other part of me is, going to Mars is going to be a horrible experience. These people who are so excited to sign up for a trip to Mars, they do so from the comfort of their homes,
Yeah.
where food is readily available and they can step outside anytime they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having constant death, just being moments away, uh, living the most, uh, everything being scarce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being in kind of unpredictable times and high stress environments with lots of people that you can't get away from.
Yeah.
It's going to be a miserable experience. But if you create the capability of going to Mars and you create a relatively high chance that they could stay alive, and then you have something like some type of conflict here on Earth, that really makes people say, I think I prefer the natural challenges of Mars over these human challenges here. I mean, that may be sort of the drive that pushes the right people to actually go and set up shop on Mars.
Yeah. I hope the right people are the first ones who go to the right people. Well, it's just like anything else. The pioneers, there was a whole different spectrum of different people who went across the country, the continental United States, so long ago. But yeah, it's not going to be easy. The first ones are going to have a lot of problems. It's not going to be. It's not going to be all. I mean, it sounds very exciting and romantic, to take a trip to Mars and all that. But yeah, the harsh reality is going to be, pretty evident. But like I said, I wouldn't want to really go to Mars. I had no desire to go to Mars. But I don't know. Do you think it's going to happen in the next? I mean, they're talking about the next 5 years going to Mars. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope we reach the moon with Starship. I think that'll probably happen within 5 years. That's another thing. Artemis the program is. I don't know if Bezos' lander is out. Is Bezos' lander still in the running? The lunar lander, or is that?
Well, so about a year and a half ago, NASA put out a request for proposals for human landing systems.
Right.
They selected 3 teams to go forward. One was, the national team led by Blue Origin. One was Dynetics, and then one was Blue Origin. I'm sorry, not
Right.
Blue Origin, SpaceX.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to have enough funding to fund two of them at least to like the next stage. And they didn't get the increase in funding they were looking for, and SpaceX was the cheapest. So they went with SpaceX and told the other two no. They protested it. It went up to the GAO, you know, uh, wherever the contracts get
Right.
arbitrated, and the GAO came back and said no, given the contract to SpaceX was okay, and but now they're suing and like
Yeah.
and that they're expected to wrap that up in early November. So
Oh,
I think Blue Origin and the national team is hoping that maybe they can figure out a way to get in back into the program through that.
well, it is good to have a little competition between two, but um, I think SpaceX, the Starship has a lot of potential. I mean, the landers are the landers, but the Starship concept has a lot of possibilities. So, well, even if NASA didn't give them this contract, it was going to go forward. I mean, they were going to, but they could do a lot with Starship with in a lunar implication. That's what's the word? Um, Implement for lunar use. I mean, there's a lot they can do with it. They can perfect the ship. I mean, it's going to be tremendous, but because it has so many possibilities, so many uses other than lunar use. But yeah, I didn't know. Okay, there are still, so by November they'll be deciding whether or not Bezos lander will still be in the run. I think it's just Bezos, in between Bezos and SpaceX. Is that what you're, or the third one is also
The
considered?
Dynetics has said, well, the GAO came back with their decision, we're not going to do anything else. But Blue Origins, I'd try and take it as far as they can.
Okay, yeah. Um, I just hope. It's kind of weird having a lunar lander as a Starship as a lunar lander. You always think of it as something like Bezos' concept or the other. But yeah, I mean, I'm open for I'm I'm open for this if it turns out to be a great system. I mean, you can do a lot more with it, like I said. So only time will tell.
The thing about SpaceX's concept, 15 launches required for each landing on the moon.
Right.
A orbital fuel depot, 13 refueling flights, and then the lunar lander itself. So that's going to be very significant effort to do
Yeah,
that.
that's the only disadvantage of this system. So, uh, yeah, it's pretty ambitious. It's a pretty ambitious concept. But I'm interested to see what's gonna happen with that. I don't know. I don't think. I mean, to tell you the truth, I don't think we're going to be landing on the moon in 2024. I think it's going to be at least a year or two after that, but we'll see. The spacesuits are behind schedule and development. That's another thing. You have to have spacesuits. Um, I do like the design that they're working on. They are working on another type. It's totally. You're probably familiar with it. It's actually for the Mars suits also. That instead of pressurizing the in the conventional way, this is going to use some kind of material that actually it's like a spandex or something that holds your pressure without pressurizing, like a little mini spaceship, and I think they used that concept in that movie, The Martian. I think
Hmm.
with um, I forgot his name. You know what I'm talking about. But that spacesuit technology, the concept, you can see what it looks like. It's much easier to use. It's not nearly as bulky. I mean, that's something they're working on. I don't know. I'm not sure for lunar. I think this is going to be for the Mars application. But the new spacesuits look very impressive. Their flexibility, they're much more easier. They can bend over and they can pick up things much easier. And we're going to need something like that. So we're planning on doing a lot of work out there. And the Apollo suits were great, but they had to be pressurized at like less than probably like 3.2 pounds per square inch. The pressure had to be as low as they could, can sustain without, because the lower the pressure, the easier it is to bend. I mean, you have to be in really good physical shape to wear a pressure suit. There's a lot of effort just bending your arms with the conventional, the shuttle spacesuits. You have to be in pretty good shape to work out there, because it is an effort to bend your elbows and things like that. It's not that easy. So they're making them easier to. I mean, also there are women who are going up also, and also people who are not. I mean, there may be older people going up. They need to have something that's not quite as strenuous to use. So I like what they're doing so far, but I think they're at least a year behind schedule. I heard. I don't know what you heard, but and you're able to get in and out of them very easily from the back, which is great. And it's still, like I said, it's an exciting time right now. We're really getting ready for something really amazing in the next few years.
It is. Yeah, it's going to be so fun to get to see it. But well, Tom, I really appreciate your time. I know we covered a lot of ground, but is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or did you have any questions for me?
I don't think so. I just like I said, I'm very excited about what's going to happen in the next few years. And I mean, I don't know how old you are. Did you witness the moonwalk? I can't tell how old you are, but
I myself and Jim Bridenstine both share at least one thing in common. We were both born in 1975, and we missed Apollo 17 by 3 years. So
yeah, okay. But we were there was a program that Tom Hanks produced, From the Earth to the Moon. You've probably seen it, and somebody said that we were the people who witnessed the first moonwalk. And we were the witnesses of all this, and the world, someday we're all going to be gone. And it's great, something like this, to document I mean, I could talk to you just about the first moonwalk, how I felt. I told you a little bit, but it was so exciting. And my grandmother was there. She was born in 1902, and she never in her million years thought that she would see something like this happen. It's amazing. It's great when it happened in 1969, because you had people who were around in the 1800s still, who would never have dreamt they would see this, let alone on television. Even like I said, the concept of television. And I don't think there'll ever be another generation, who were born in the late 19th century and then lived till the maybe 1975 or so, who were able to see such change. The 20th century was an amazing century, unbelievable change. That's not all great, but I don't think there'll be another century like that. I mean, people were using horses and carriages and living in wooden houses for centuries. Nothing much changed. And then the 1800s, toward the end of the 1800s, everything started changing fast. The 20th century is an amazing century. And like I said, some good, some bad. But there'll never be another century like that.
it is amazing to think about, going from having no airplanes to commercial travel being available, having no internet. I think radio was available at the end of the 1800s, wasn't it?
Well, they talk about Marconi. I'm not sure if he was actually the one who invented radio. I can't remember offhand. But yeah, it's the early 20th century, maybe the late 19th century, the concept of it. But radio, and then later a television. Television was really developed in the 1920s, I think, but it wasn't really implemented and really practical until late 40s. It would have been around if World War II hadn't happened. It was all ready to go around 1938 or so, 39, and then all that happened. But yeah, I mean, my father used to say, we didn't have television. Well, we had radio. Every generation had their thing. Things were different. But a lot of the things like this iPad or the iPhone, I would have loved to have had one. This is the stuff I was waiting for in the 1970s when I was a teenager. I was waiting for like this kind of stuff, and even Star Trek, when the Star Trek Next Generation came out, they had pads, they call them PADDs. And now we have, these are even thinner and it's the whole screen. I mean, and Star Trek inspired so much of this technology. This Apple engineers were Star Trek fans. They wanted something like this. And I think it was like the late 80s, early 90s when that pad concept came out. And 10, 15 years later, we have them. They're even better. I mean, it's there was a movie, the first Star Trek movie had wrist communicators, Star Trek motion picture. And now we have, I have an Apple Watch that does the same thing. They had also a monitor on their belts. It was like a belt buckle thing on their uniform, and it monitored their blood pressure or heart rate. And now we have that also with this, and that didn't take the 23rd century to happen, So that way, I'm very hopeful that we're going to be able to do a lot in the next 100 years, not in 300 or 400 years. It's just amazing in a few years what we've done. Technology wise, you just have to desire. If you want something to happen, you have to make it happen. But yeah, Star Trek has inspired so many people in engineering and space. Astronauts were Star Trek fans when they were kids in the 60s or teenagers in the 60s. And like I said, when Shatner went up, it's art imitating life. But with that flight, it was, for a change, it was life imitating art, with and I had a shot in there on Facebook about that, and a lot of people like that what I said. But anyway, it's I'm hopeful to a certain extent. It's up to us though. It's up to all of us to make this to make it a Star Trek future someday, where the Earth is prosperous and people have there aren't any wars, and we've learned how to live and respect each other, and then we can go into space and do other things. We have to, also we have to work on ourselves. I don't know how else to put it.
You touched on Star Trek, and it's really interesting. Like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, I feel like Star Trek was the preeminent, widespread, common sci-fi vision of what the future would look like. Yeah. And now you see, I think Star Trek's really lost its place as being like that common vision. I think there's like so much variety in terms of media and different things. Star Wars is really more of, kind of like, what if we have the world we have now, but with technology? that's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's why. I like Star Wars and all that, but it is the word wars is in it, So yeah, I like the philosophy of Star Trek. Star Wars is a whole different thing. It's apples and oranges, My wife thinks there's no difference between Star Trek and Star Wars, but but yeah, I mean, it's a concept, it's an ideal, and a lot of ideals are never realized, but it's good to have something like that to inspire to have, to inspire to do. people need role models. I think Star Trek have good role models for kids. And there's a lot of stuff out there in television that these people aren't particularly good role models that these kids are watching. But that's one of the things I like about Star Trek. For the most part, these people are good role models. And Scott Bakula always was very proud to be involved with Star Trek Enterprise. That's how I feel anyway. There's so much stuff out there. I know there's a lot of science fiction out there. Some of it's more gritty. It's a bit grittier, I guess the word would be. What the future is going to be like, space travel. It's not going to be that easy, like we were talking about at first with anything. It's going to take a while to really refine our technologies. It's not going to happen anytime in the near future, but I wish I could see what things are going to unfold in the next couple hundred years. I hope it's all, for the most part, going to be good. It's but human nature is human nature. Hopefully we'll learn from a lot of these problems. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, human nature is human nature, and I mean that phrase, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really difficult to have power and not use it, to have influence and not use it, and then it's very difficult not to be self-interested. Like that's impossible, I would say. And you kind of see this play out a little bit in some of the dynamics that we have in news space, in the sense of, like the Boca Chica community down there, a community of retired people sort of, pushed aside in order to allow for SpaceX to do their rocket development there. And, I kind of have mixed feelings on that, like what's the alternative and how would you have done it differently? And, they could have chosen to kept their property, but could they really have, I mean, you got things like that. And then you look at Jeff Bezos, like the amount of influence and power he has, and kind of like how that interplays with, like this, the whole Blue Origin lawsuit, as an example. It's just like, it's more important that he's part of it than that the program goes forward, or kind of, it's really all kind of interesting.
It is. I mean, these men are incredibly wealthy, and it's hard. I don't know how some of these people keep a level head with just and it's bigger than they are. I mean, their companies. It's just a huge, massive thing, and then there's so many people running it. Besides themselves, but I have no idea how they handle things like that. How they can handle it. It's hard. It is hard when you're that powerful and wealthy to keep a level head and keep your priorities straight. I'm hoping these companies are going to be doing great things in the future too. The electric cars, I hope that continues. I hope GM is supposed to be coming out with a whole line of electric cars in the next few years. We have to do this. It's so important we get off of the internal combustion engine. I know the oil industry doesn't like this, but they're going to have to jump in the bandwagon with other concepts of energy. We just can't do it anymore. This is over 120 years we've been using this concept. We had electric cars back in the 1910, I think 1915. They had electric cars. They weren't that practical with batteries the way they were, but now's the time to start doing things. It's going to be a little rough at first, but if they handle it correctly, the transition won't be quite as bad as some people say. But we have to start doing it. We have no choice. We have to start doing it. just that one aspect alone. And solar power, eventually cold fusion. If they want to continue with nuclear, we can't continue with the nuclear reactors we have. We're just playing with fire, you know. If we can perfect cold fusion, then it's a clean way of having almost unlimited power. These older reactors are going to have to be mothballed and buried because there's no way you can get rid of the waste from them right now. And I hope in the next 20 years we'll start doing that. It works. The concept works, but if you cut corners and if you're making mistakes, that's when you'll have another Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island. So I think it's gone as far as it can go, and hopefully it's going to take a while to perfect it, but we have to do these things. We have to. We have no choice. We have to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like the cost of lack of vigilance has to be considered. With like a solar wind farm, a solar farm or a wind farm, that goes without maintenance for a few years. Your risk is it may not work. But a nuclear reactor, that goes without maintenance for a few years. Your risk is, potentially having like fallout of some type.
Oh, it'll poison the whole area, a huge area. So again, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take at least another, I mean, if we start now over the next 10, 15 years, 20 years, but it's still going to take, better part of at least a half a century to maybe make a difference. We've done a lot of damage in the past 120 years, so it's not gonna clear up overnight. But we have to make we got to make proper steps right now. We have to. We should have been doing it 25, 30 years ago. People were talking about this a long time. Even in high school, people were we heard things about this. Global warming. It was going to happen. No one wanted to listen. No one wanted to invest in electric cars. But it's always this is always the case. I know the United States has always been a country that catches up quickly. When the Russians were first going into orbit and all that, we caught up quickly. World War II, we were not prepared in any way for World War II. And in a couple of years, we were winning the war. A few years. I'm hoping this is another, wake up call, and we're going to be able to do it. But one country can't do it. We have to have a complete alliance with as many countries as we can.
That's true, and learning to work together, even with inside of one's country, is challenging enough. Trying to do it across countries, especially of interest that are really benefit from keeping us divided. It's not going to be easy.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Well, Tom, any other thoughts? Or
nothing I could think of. That's about it. I'm just hopeful that we're going to be able to see a man and a woman on the moon in the next 5 years, maybe. That would be very gratifying. And we'll see. We'll see. But thank you so much, and thank you for posting so many great photos. Some of them I never saw before. And yeah, it brought back a lot of great memories. Apollo, the days of Apollo were very exciting, like I said, and thank you so much for that. Jarring a lot of memories.
Well, good deal. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences as well. And I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday, and look forward to staying in touch online.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.